What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Joe Rogan talks to PED expert about Conor McGregor's physique. In the time since his horrific leg break suffered against Dustin Poirier last year, Conor McGregor's physique has continued to make headlines. As he and his family traveled around the world in his Lamborghini super yacht, fans noticed that the former two-division champ was beginning to look uncharacteristically muscular. As he continued to pack on the pounds and add to his definition, a report emerged that McGregor was the only fighter on the UFC's roster to go without being tested by USADA all of 2022. That was followed up by UFC President Dana White revealing for the first time that McGregor would need to undergo 6 months of mandatory testing under USADA before being eligible to compete again. The news quickly made headlines, while the Irish superstar explained that he was going to use an exemption to bypass the 6-month testing period. That quickly drew criticism from many, as McGregor was accused of gaming the system. At the same time, however, USADA refuted the former champion's claims, explaining that he would need to undergo testing before being eligible again. During a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, McGregor's physique was put under the microscope by a PED expert who weighed in on McGregor's massive gains, saying,
I did a whole deep dive video on what I think he could be doing, and I think for any individual that doesn't pass the eye test, he would definitely be one of those individuals, but I wouldn't boil it down to that. He could be a hyper outlier individual for sure. And I wouldn't want to ever say like a definitive statement. I think it's highly probable that he's done certain things for sure.
For his part, Rogan explained that he believes McGregor's on so many PEDs, his urine would melt one of the USADA testing cups. Although there hasn't been a response from McGregor, stay on high alert for a potential tweet and delete. Paddy Pimblett sends warning shot to Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria and Paddy Pimblett have been at odds ever since the streaking Scouser made some controversial comments about Georgian-born fighters on Twitter. The situation came to a head prior to UFC Fight Night London earlier this year, when the two men were involved in a physical altercation in a hotel lobby that saw bottles flung and punches thrown. With the two men both set to appear on the UFC's upcoming UFC 282 card on December 10th, many have been anxiously awaiting the first face-to-face encounter between the two. After Topuria alleged that he wasn't allowed to enter the UFC Performance Institute until Pimblett had been whisked away, he explained that as long as Pimblett remains respectful, he won't have any reason to go after the streaking contender. On the flip side of things, however, Pimblett is doing everything he can to avoid the undefeated featherweight. According to the baddie, he specifically is trying to steer clear of Topuria for fear of what he may do if they come face to face again. He spoke to BT Sport about the situation, saying,
I've got myself a house, yeah. Don't need to stay in a hotel with them mushrooms, lad, hand sanitizer boy and that. See him, lad, I'll end up snapping his chin. So I'll just stay away, lad, won't get in trouble with NSAC or nothing.
Although these two men fight in different weight classes, fans have been eager to see them square off inside the octagon given their long-standing beef. Should Topuria defeat Bryce Mitchell and Pimblett defeat Jared Gordon, do you think we could see these two men inside the octagon? Kevin Holland fires back at critics after loss to Wonderboy. Saturday night, the UFC hit Florida for a highly anticipated event headlined by famed striker Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and fan-favorite fighter Kevin Holland. With the two men both eager to stand and bang, fans knew they would be in for a treat. Needless to say, the bout did not disappoint, despite the fact that Holland broke several bones in his hand during the course of the first round. Over the course of the fight, the two men both found success, with Wonderboy picking up momentum as the fight progressed. After landing multiple wheel kicks and countless significant strikes, Holland's corner ultimately threw in the towel between rounds after recognizing that their fighter was no longer in a position to win the fight going into the final round. After the fight, many criticized Holland for engaging in a kickboxing match with Thompson, rather than turning the fight into an MMA fight as his corner repeatedly implored him to do. Derek Brunson was the first to react to the fight, poking fun at Holland for fighting with his heart rather than his brain. Holland was quick to fire back, teasing a potential return to 185 pounds for a rematch with Brunson, who he lost to last year. Yes, yes, and yes. First good tweet you ever made. Also, the type of guy to come back up a weight class and smack that blonde head around. I'd be doing it just for the fans though, like always. Of course, before Holland returns to the octagon, he will have to undergo hand surgery to repair several broken and displaced bones. With no timeline yet for his return, fans will have to wait before seeing Big Mouth back in action. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Michael Bisping reacts to Holland vs Wonderboy fight. In the main event of UFC Fight Night Orlando, fan favorite Kevin Holland squared off with former title challenger Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in a highly anticipated showdown that produced an arguable Fight of the Year contender. Although the fight delivered plenty of highlight-worthy moments for fans, it also saw Holland receive considerable criticism for moments where he chose to engage in a striking battle with Thompson rather than utilizing his BJJ black belt. Early on in the fight, Holland wound up in top position and wound up calling Wonderboy back to his feet rather than trying to work his ground game. Much to the dismay of his corner, Holland did not look to take the fight to the ground until he was clearly out of the fight, shooting for takedowns out of desperation rather than using his striking to set up his grappling. According to former middleweight champion Michael Bisping, this fight was a horrible display of fight IQ. He spoke during the ESPN post-fight show saying,
"This is not a popularity contest in terms of, oh, everyone thinks I'm real badass tonight. No, you come here to win a fight. This is high stakes. Do you want to be a champion? Do you want to earn a lot of money? Do you want to be known as one of the best fighters in the world, or a guy that puts on a good show and possibly gives away a victory?" That was not high fight IQ.
As Bisping pointed out, this is one of the rare times a fighter honors the verbal agreement to stand and fight rather than taking the fight to the ground. Over the years, we've seen plenty of fighters say they will keep a fight standing, but very rarely have they stuck to it. What did you think of the fight? Did you appreciate Holland giving the fans what they wanted, or would you have preferred to see him get the win while using his grappling? Give us your thoughts in the comments below. And now for our breaking news story of the day. Rafael Dos Anjos calls out Conor McGregor for a long overdue fight. Way back in 2016, Conor McGregor was booked to fight Rafael Dos Anjos for the lightweight title. Fresh off of his undisputed title win over Jose Aldo, McGregor was eager to capitalize on the momentum and capture a second UFC title. Unfortunately, Dos Anjos broke his foot prior to the fight, despite McGregor calling it a bruise. Dos Anjos was ultimately pulled from the fight at the last minute, as subsequently replaced by Nate Diaz, who went on to hand the Irish superstar his first defeat inside the octagon. RDA then went on to fight Eddie Alvarez, who he lost the title to later that year. After picking up a dominant win over Bryan Barberena at UFC Fight Night Orlando this weekend, RDA once again called for a fight with McGregor during his post-fight octagon interview. Given that the fight was the one that got away, Dos Anjos believes he would be the perfect man to welcome McGregor back to the octagon. He elaborated on those comments during the post-fight press conference, saying,
"Yeah, look at my resume. I fought everybody. I need to fight somebody that I think I earned this fight. I would like to. I don't want to. I will not ask UFC for extra crazy paydays. I just want to have that fight. And yeah, July works perfect for me. We'll see what happens."
The July timeline proposed by Dos Anjos could very well line up with McGregor's highly anticipated return. After explaining that he would take 2 USADA tests in February before returning to active competition, it was then revealed that he would have to complete the 6 months of mandatory testing. If McGregor were to begin the testing period in January, he could be ready to go in July for the UFC's International Fight Week pay-per-view. What do you think? Are you ready to see McGregor and Dos Anjos square off inside the octagon after all these years? Or would you rather see McGregor make his return against someone else? Sound off in the comments below. Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to see more videos just like this. See you next time.